Давайте представим нашего следующего спикера. Это профессор Дэвид Клаттербак, очень известный человек в мире коучинга, автор более 60 книг по коучингу и менторингу, известный executive-коуч. Дэвид будет выступать, а переводить его будет Айгуль Шамшилдаева, коуч PCC, executive-коуч, представитель в Казахстане, Коучинг и менторинг International, аккредитованный ментор и супервизор. Айгуль, спасибо, будем рады, если возьмете на себя права. Уважаемые участники, на экране появилась кнопочка «Перевод». Те, кто хочет слушать в оригинале, пожалуйста, выберите английский. Те, кто хочет слушать перевод, выберите русский. Те, кто слушает нас с телефона, обязательно нужно нажать кнопочку «Готово», чтобы подключился микрофон. Спасибо, я передаю слово.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. So, hello everybody. Aigul, I can't hear you. Okay, I can't hear you. I can hear everybody just now.
David.
Айгуль, я вас прекрасно слышу, спасибо.
David, do you hear me?
I do hear you. Yep.
Yeah, my name is Almas. Yeah, I'm one of the organizers of this conference. I think you should choose the language you're speaking. So there is an button translation. Yes, so
English,
you can indicate your language, English. So I will be able to hear you. I think so.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
And are we going to? Is Aigul going to share the screen, or shall I share my screen? I'll try and share my screen. Okay.
David, do you hear Aigul?
No, I don't.
No.
Hopefully.
Айгуль, он вас не слышит. У вас какой язык стоит? Попробуйте.
I do. You hear you? Yeah. Lovely. Okay, that's perfect. We have the technology. Oh. Okay, let's just go straight to the next one.
Презентацию видно.
Okay. No problem.
Okay.
Okay.
David.
I'm here. Yep.
Yeah. You can start. So Igor
Okay.
will be speaking Russian. So you will not be hearing her. So you can start your presentation.
That's fine. Let's go straight into the slides. And if Igor could just keep the slides moving, but that's fine. So let's go. Right. So here we go. We've seen some wonderful changes in both coaching and mentoring. I seem to have jumped 2 slides there. I jumped a slide there, but in both coaching and mentoring. Okay, we seem to have lost one. Doesn't matter. So what we've been seeing in the whole world of coaching is a massive movement over the last 30 years, from it being from being directive to non-directive. This is for the coaching. Okay, from anecdote to evidence, from this one-to-one to team coaching, and into professionalization. So these are all things that are happening in coaching right now. And they've been it's a gradual movement, and one of the things that we'll get to later is when we talk about professionalization, what do we actually mean by it? When professionalization started, the concept was that it would enable people to be more effective in their coaching activities. What it's moved towards is about making more money, about being and about running businesses. And so there's a tension here between what the origins of coaching and its and to help people, and coaching now as a way, or as a business, as a way of making money. This is something that we see a lot more of. The same things on the next slide to do with mentoring. So if we just move on to the next slide, then we can see that. Okay, so in mentoring. Okay. Yeah. All right, that's fine. Okay, I'll pause then. Yeah. So let me know when you want me to go on. Okay. Okay. So what we see in mentoring as well is that mentoring has gone in the last 40 years since it started to become something less something that was informal to becoming something that was structured and planned. It started to become something that is for everybody. It's much it's a wider thing than just for young graduates, was where it started. And again, what we've seen is a wide-ranging development of good practice and standards. And in fact, a lot of the good the practice in standards for mentoring have influenced the standards in coaching. And this is particularly true in the context of standards for mentoring and coaching programs within organizations. And what we've seen is hundreds of new applications of mentoring, from working with people coming back, trauma victims, for example, people coming back from war, getting them back into the community, helping immigrants settle in new countries, helping entrepreneurs, hundreds of different applications. And we've also seen supervision arising for mentors, just as it is for coaching. Yeah. So what we're beginning to see on with both coaching and mentoring is some key trends, and I'm just going to talk about those trends today. So let's just look at those trends on the next slide. So what we're seeing is a lot of unevidenced practice has accumulated over the last 30 years, and now we're beginning to challenge this more and more robustly. I'll talk about some of these on the next slide, but as an example, what we're now seeing is reliance on the GROW model, which used to be seen as a positive aspect of coaching, is now increasingly seen as an indication of low-level, ineffective coaching. And so some of the themes that we'll explore now is maternity, coaching people to help them with ethical dilemmas, and working and looking at work teams as opposed to individuals. So other themes we'll cover are coach maturity, the threat from or opportunity from artificial intelligence, and some more on team coaching. We'll see how much time we have for these. Let's look. So let's look at the next slide, and here we have some very common coaching myths. So this idea, the idea that coaches need to have a clear goal at the start of the assignment is not borne out by the evidence. What the evidence tells us is that very often the purpose of coaching and mentoring is to help somebody work out their goals, at which point they don't need any more help. And a study by the Institute of Coaching at Harvard found that of 200 coaches, experienced coaches, 192 said that whatever goal the client sets at the beginning will change if the coaching is effective. Another myth is that while solutions-focused coaching has a lot of value, the idea that the client needs a solution to emerge from each session is not evidenced. It's usually the coach's need to find a solution. What the client needs is a significant advancement in their thinking. And then they can work out their solution themselves when they have time to think it through. And then this strange one, the idea that coaching is non-directive and mentoring is directive. Mentoring has never, ever been directive. It has, whereas coaching has the history of coaching, which is only 170 years. Only in the last 20 years has the emphasis of coaching become non-directive. Mentors use their wisdom to help somebody else become wiser. The confusion comes from mixing up giving advice and giving context. Mentors have experience they're able to bring to the learning conversation. So they are able to empathize better, to ask better questions from a knowledge, and they are also able to give information that will help the other person with their thinking. So giving context helps people with their thinking. Giving advice is doing the thinking for them. And it took a coach, Timothy Galway, a tennis coach, Timothy Galway, in 1974 to be the first sports coach to suggest that people actually could be taught in a or coached in a non-directive way. And one of the things our current research into coach maturity tells us is that the most mature coaches use themselves far more and effectively blend coaching and mentoring in the way that they work with their clients. There's another myth about note-taking. I've had if we take notes, we cannot listen fully and be fully present. Our brains aren't able to cope with doing both things at the same time. So what we do instead is we pause every now and then and we ask the client, what would you like to capture from what we've just been saying? If you take the notes, you're taking charge. If the client decide what's important, you're giving the control to them. You're empowering them. Another myth is that a good coach can coach anybody in anything. This is both dangerous and unethical. You have to understand enough of the context to ensure that the client is safe, and that what is being done is appropriate and legal. Coaching, another myth is that coaching is a process. It's not. It's a conversation. It's an art, a constant experiment. The more that coaches follow a process, the less effective their coaching is. There's an assumption too that the more hours of coaching you do make you more effective. But again, there's no evidence for this. And in fact, the evidence from assessment centers indicates there is no statistically significant correlation. We've encountered coaches who claim to have 4,000 or more hours of coaching and still haven't got a clue what they're doing. So the last one of the myths here, the client's the focus for coaching. They're not. It's the client in their system. So it's the people around them, the system, their boss, their team, other people that influence them. If those things don't change as well, then change is unlikely to happen in the client. So some of the on the next slide, some of the more interesting new kinds of coaching and mentoring. So maternity mentoring or paternity mentoring for men, it's about helping people back into the workplace after they've taken parental leave. Very effective in increasing the speed and the effectiveness of their return. So the second one, another one is this whole area of ethical mentoring. And so with ethical mentoring, we're trying to help people or coaches help leaders to work with complex ethical problems. And we're seeing a big rise in the number of ethical mentors or coaches becoming ethical mentors. On the next slide is a definition, which I'll just let you read rather than spend time translating it. And certainly it's something that's deeply needed in organizations. Now, most of these are inside organizations, and of course, we're seeing a vast increase in training line managers to be effective coaches within their teams. On the next slide. What we've learned is it's no good just training the line manager. You have to train the people who are going to be coached as well. And so one of the things that we're doing more experiments around is how you create a coaching culture inside the team. But let's take a look at the whole issue of coach maturity. Stage model is a term that we use for the way that people grow up or go through phases in terms of their identity and capability. And becoming an effective coach is just the same, goes through the same processes as becoming an individual, a more mature human being. So you go through different levels of awareness, and sometimes you can go back to stages you were in before, but you've gone beyond them because they don't work for you anymore. Or the early ones don't work in most cases. So as an example, the grow model that we talked about earlier, people grow out of the grow model because it doesn't work in complex situations. And so if we look at the way that stage models work on the next slide, one of the most common ones for people, for human beings evolving, is the Robert Keegan and Otto Lasky's work. So you start off being defined, who you are, your socio-emotional and your cognitive maturity is defined by other people around you. And then we go to, then as we grow up, we become what's called self-authoring. So we have our own values. We are less influenced by other people's, by wanting to conform with other people, than wanting to conform with our own values. And then when we grow up even more, we recognize that our identity is intricately linked with everything that's going on around us, and that actually we are changing, and so is the world around us, and it's a constant flow. One of the things that we find is that very few world leaders ever reach level 5. Yeah. In fact, it's debatable whether any psychopath or sociopath can get there. But here's some dilemmas on the next slide for us as coaches. So what if the client's more mature personally than the coach is, or the coach is more mature than their supervisor? And what's the relationship between personal maturity and maturity as a coach? So in the research we've been doing on coach maturity, which I'll share with you on the next slide, these are the key questions, or the key levels that we have. And what we found is that the mindset that a coach has, the relationship of themselves to their clients and their work, evolves through these 4 stages. So at the beginning, as a models-based coach, you've got an approach. It could be grow, it could be any of a number, but it's all you've got. So you make the client conform to the process that you have. And then you gradually mature as you get more confident and have more tools at your disposal to what we call the process level. And here, whereas in the models-based level, you're doing coaching to someone, in the process-based level, you're doing coaching with someone. And then there's a big gap as people learn more, they reflect more, and reflection on your practice is one of the critical factors. And gradually they begin to integrate what they do as a coach with who they are as a human being. And then there's a small proportion of coaches who make the transition to true mastery. And it's characteristic by doing far less, but far more effectively. And we describe them as holding the client while the client has the conversations that the client needs to have with themselves. I collect powerful questions, and I've collected hundreds of really powerful questions from the bottom to from the process-based, philosophy-based and systemic eclectic coaches. I've collected precisely 3 from coaches at the models or process-based level. So coaching, so this journey towards coach maturity, I think, is a really important one, and we can make it, and it's something that we have to pay attention to, but the key is reflection, reflection, reflection. A little while ago, we did a study, several years ago now, we did a study trying to understand what were the qualities of a mature coach that we could see, and also the qualities of a mature leader. And we found that they were the same. And so on the next slide, what we found were these 4 core qualities: compassion, curiosity, courage, and connection. So compassion is about having compassion for yourself and for the client. Curiosity is about really being truly interested in them, their world, and their perspectives. The courage to confront not only their beliefs, but our beliefs. And this deep sense of connection, not just with the client, but with the wider world. There's a wonderful South African word called Ubuntu, and it means I am because we are. So if we think about compassion, the first one of these, let's just say a few words about compassion. And I think in building our compassion, on the next slide, we can look at it from 4 directions. And here we've got thinking about how we think, thinking about how we feel, feeling about how we think, and feeling about how we feel. If we make it a regular activity to reflect on our experience through these 4 lenses, it gives us a much deeper understanding of ourselves and a much deeper level of compassion. So let's look at the next slide. And for some reason, my slides have just vanished. Bear with me for a second. I'll bring them back. There we go. Thinking of this, when we're irritated by a client, what could change if we were more compassionate towards them? What kindness can we offer them? I'll let you just read the slide because to save time. Thank you. And when it comes to being compassionate for ourselves, I think this is one of the biggest areas that enables us to be compassionate to other people. So on the next slide, I've got some more questions here, but let me talk to the issue of engaging your inner critic. And one of the tools that I find really helpful is to actually give a personality and shape to your inner critic. I call mine Eric. And I will, when I'm being critical of myself and feeling sorry for myself, I will imagine that Eric is sitting on a chair or sitting on my bookshelf there, just looking at me and talking at me. And instead of trying not to listen to him, I actually take the attitude that Eric is there he wants to help, even though he's not being very helpful. And so I say to him, okay, Eric, put it clearly to me. What exactly are you saying? And I let him speak, and I imagine what he's saying to me. And then having gone. And then I say very calmly, thank you, Eric, for your well-meaning thoughts, but I'm going to ignore them because I'm going to do X or Y. And when Eric becomes a well-meaning idiot, it's much easier for you to ignore him. I'm going to pause the slides there and just talk, because of time, I'm just going to cover the last few issues that I plan to talk about. just broadly, and then open up to questions. Yeah. The key things I wanted to say to round off the list that I had at the beginning, let's start with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, machines, robots are already able to do the vast majority of what a models-based coach can do, and in many cases do it better. And in fact, in some experiments with trauma therapy, the patients prefer the machine to a human. So keeping a practice at that models-based level is pretty dangerous in terms of future business. And therefore, that's a very strong argument for continuous professional development. And a big part of that professional development is making the move from just coaching one-to-one to coaching teams. And every coach that has actually undertaken development as a team coach has found that their one-to-one coaching has improved radically. So there's a process here by which we are seeing an expanding market for team coaching. We estimate that there is a need over the next 5 years for 150,000 team coaches globally. Let's stop there. And the other big movement that I'd like to draw your attention to is the shift in the perception of what coaching and mentoring are there for. I was on a panel with 3 other well-known coaches just a few months ago. And all of their messages were about how to make more money as a coach. And I passionately believe that if coaching is just about helping one more narcissistic executive climb another rung up the corporate ladder, then we've missed our way. what we're seeing increasingly amongst coaches, amongst many coaches, is a recognition that we have skills that are really important in addressing the big social and climate and other issues that the planet faces. And the question is, how do we make this happen? And we have two movements, two particular movements. One is the democratization of coaching, and the other is the decolonization of coaching. And the democratization is about how we enable people who can't afford coaching in rural villages in Africa, for example, to have access to being coached and learning to coach themselves. And the decolonization of coaching is about how we decouple coaching from the assumption, from it's being dominated by one culture or one national culture, when most other cultures around the world have their own ways of looking at what coaching is. So we have some big challenges. I'm going to stop and allow people to ask questions. Okay.
Хотела поблагодарить Дэвида, спасибо огромное. Многие участники по телефону пишут и в чаты коучей, насколько глубокая тема затронута, и благодарят за приглашение. Спасибо огромное.
Thank you. This is a wonderful time to be a coach. There is so much potential. Mm-hmm. It happens. That is, well, I go that's it's a great question. It's one that we keep being asked. And the answer is there is at the moment no academically sound way of really measuring the impact of coaching. The one thing that we're lacking and we're trying to encourage is studies that are comparative studies between groups of people in an organization who have received coaching and people who have not. And there is also, we have macro studies that are valid, which look at the degree to which a company invests in a coaching culture and the longevity and profitability of that company. So we can go on, yeah. But these studies are difficult and expensive to do. We need more of them. But paradoxically, the easiest one, mentoring, is so much easier to measure than coaching. And so, for example, we know that somebody who has a mentor is 1/3 less likely to leave the organization than somebody who does not. So it's easy to put a cash value on that.
Появилось еще 2 вопроса. Айгуль, можно, да, задать? Да? Серафима Ломоносова. Первый вопрос. Какова разница коучить мужчину и женщину? На чем надо фокусироваться? И второй вопрос. Каков был самый большой вызов в карьере коуча у Дэвида и как он его решал? Спасибо.
That's too difficult question. The answer is we cannot find any significant difference between coaching men and coaching women. Not on any material, any measure that we have. There doesn't seem to be a significant difference. We thought that there may be more difficulties in terms of imposter syndrome, for example, that women would suffer from imposter syndrome more. Turns out the difference is so small it doesn't matter. It's just that men are better at hiding it. So there does seem to be a difference between coaching introverts and extroverts. And then that relates to basically helping them to understand that actually introverts marginally make better managers. So the other, my most challenging moment, oh gosh, I think it's as a beginner team coach, 25 years ago or more, I learned a lesson that many team coaches also learn fairly early in their careers. I was working with a team which were disunited. They could not agree on anything. And finally, I managed to unite them. They all ganged up against me. And that was the point that I learned how lonely it is as a team coach. And I learned two things from that. One, always have a colleague. So never always team coach in pairs if you can, if it's a large team. And the other one was the tactic that you always have to say, that's fascinating. What's going on what do you think's happening in the room right now? And to push it back to them. And that was. So there we are. Yeah, absolutely. But if we think about every coaching conversation as an experiment, and we contract with our clients, we're going to experiment here. And some of our experiments are going to work. Some of them are going to work partly. Some of them are not going to work at all. So treating it as an experiment from which we can both learn takes a lot of that fear away. Okay. That's a pleasure. I was going to say Kazakhstan is being shy. No, never. Yep, indeed. So, see, Coaching and Mentoring International is a network of enthusiastic trainers and developers of coaches and mentors globally. So it operates through 30 organizations around the world, and in about 100 countries, just over 100 countries. So and we all engage in research, but also in the development of highly effective coaching and mentoring practice. So we'll be bringing to Kazakhstan both the Mentoring Academy, which is all about and developing mentors, and the Team Coaching Academy, which is about developing team coaches, and a lot of other projects and programs as well that people can access and grow your identity and capability as coaches. That's our mission. We have a lot of fun doing it.